Having this is very serious because what you hold begins to hold you. This is the principle that applies not only to things, the possessions, the status, the opinions, but also to emotions, beliefs, habits, and identities. Once you have something, the responsibility does not disappear. It multiplies. Look at a person who is carrying a jar of water on their head. Before they had it, they moved freely. They looked around, spoke freely, laughed maybe. But once they have it, every step must be measured. Every movement becomes deliberate. There is weight, there is balance, there is silence. Having this changes how you walk through the world. Now, what is this? It can be anything: a truth, a title, a pain, a dream, even a piece of knowledge, a secret, a memory. The moment you possess it, you are no longer the same. You must become worthy of what you carry, otherwise it will crush you. It will shape you into something without your awareness. To have something truly, not just borrow it or mimic it, requires that you grow roots, because anything real will test your foundation. If you are not steady, it will shake you. If you are not sincere, it will expose you. This is why having this is not light, it is not casual, it is not decoration. There are people who want strength, but they forget the discipline that strength demands. There are people who want peace, but they avoid the work that peace insists on. There are people who want to lead, but they ignore the stillness required to hear truth beyond their own voice. When you have something and you are not ready, it becomes poison. But when you are ready, it becomes medicine, not just for you, but for those around you. It is not enough to get. You must become. To have something real is to agree silently to be tested by it every day. Having this is very serious. What you possess begins to possess you. At first, it may sound like a riddle or perhaps a paradox, but the moment you sit with it, truly sit with it, you begin to notice how true it is. This is not merely a poetic idea. It is an observable pattern that plays itself out in your life again and again, often without you realizing it. Think of the things that you chase. Think of the effort, the thought, the planning, the hope, the anxiety that fills you in the process of wanting something. And then, one day, you finally get it. You get the position, the relationship, the recognition, the wealth, the idea, the knowledge. You finally hold what you once dreamed of, but then something changes. You are no longer the same person. You are not lighter. You are heavier. What you once pursued with freedom now demands your time. It demands your energy, your thoughts, your movements, sometimes even your identity. When you didn't have it, your mind was full of desire. When you do have it, your mind becomes full of fear. Fear of losing it. Fear of not deserving it. Fear of someone else taking it. Fear of not being enough to keep it alive. This is the quiet exchange that happens when something enters your life and becomes part of who you think you are. Possession is not just ownership in the legal or material sense. It is attachment. It is identification. It is allowing something external to shape the way you experience yourself and the world around you. This can be subtle, incredibly subtle. You may believe you are the one holding it, but often it is already holding you, and it can be as simple as a thought. Consider the mind. You have a thought, a worry, a belief, a story you tell yourself. You think you have it under control, but then it begins to direct your attention. It shapes your emotions. It decides what you notice and what you miss. Over time, this single thought, this fragment of perspective, begins to shape your decisions, your behavior, your relationships, and eventually your life. It is no longer just a thought. It is a lens, and now you don't even see it as something separate from yourself. You say, "This is just who I am," but it isn't. It is something you picked up, something you carried for so long you forgot you were ever without it. This is how possessions become possessive. Now imagine someone who suddenly becomes famous. For years, they may have wanted recognition. They dreamt of being seen, of being celebrated, of mattering. And then it happens. The world pays attention. Their name is known. But now, every word they say must be filtered, every gesture watched. Every opinion becomes a headline. There is less freedom, not more. Now, they are not simply a person, they are a public image. And if they're not careful, that image becomes their prison. They thought they had fame. But fame had them. It is the same with wealth. You might imagine that having a fortune would bring relief, security, and rest. But for many, it brings the opposite: more stress, more worry, more isolation. They do not sleep peacefully. They sleep lightly, guarded. The more they have, the more they fear losing. Now they must manage, protect, and defend what they own. Slowly, quietly, the wealth owns them. And yet this is not to say that all possessions are harmful. It is not about the object, the idea, or the experience itself. It is about the relationship you have with it. Are you holding it lightly, like a bird in the hand? Or are you clenching it so tightly that it cannot breathe, and neither can you? There is a saying, the tighter you grasp the sand, the more it slips through your fingers. And this is the danger of confusing possession with control. Because real control is not about force, it is about understanding. You must understand yourself, understand what you're holding, why you are holding it, and how it is shaping you in return. A wise person does not just ask, what do I want to have? They ask, what am I willing to be shaped by? Because anything you welcome into your life will leave fingerprints on your mind, on your heart, on your behavior. Think of anger. When it arises, you can choose to hold on to it or let it pass. But if you grasp it, if you keep replaying the story, if you nurse the wound, you begin to act through it. It distorts your perception. You see enemies where there are none. You expect betrayal even from friends. Anger takes root, and soon it begins to possess your vision. It makes decisions for you, and yet you might still believe you're the one in control. That illusion is powerful. Now think of knowledge. You learn something new, a piece of wisdom, a system, a belief. At first it is exciting, illuminating. It opens your mind, but over time that same knowledge can become a barrier. You start to think you know. You stop questioning. You become rigid, defensive. You dismiss other perspectives. Knowledge, which once expanded you, now shrinks you. You become a servant to the idea rather than its student. Even love, the most cherished possession, can possess us. When love is free, it flows, it uplifts. But when it is clung to, when it is used to complete a sense of lack, it becomes a trap. We try to control the other person. We fear their distance. We manipulate, even subtly, to keep them near. And slowly, love turns into attachment, into dependency, into suffering. We thought we had love, but what we had was fear, wearing the mask of love. The world teaches you to accumulate, to gather, to hold, to protect, but rarely does it teach you how to let go. And yet letting go is what allows you to truly own something without being owned by it. The key lies in awareness. When you bring awareness into what you carry, you begin to notice, is this helping me grow? Is this aligned with my path? Or is this simply familiar, comfortable, expected? When you become aware, you can choose to carry something not because you must, but because it is right, because it is meaningful, because it deepens your presence, not distracts from it. You cannot stop yourself from possessing things in life. Experiences will come, relationships will begin, thoughts will arise, but you can develop the skill to see through them, to stay centered even while participating, to engage without becoming entangled. This requires humility, it requires stillness, and it requires a kind of inner clarity that is not born of force, but of attention. When you begin to notice that everything you carry is also shaping the way you walk, the way you speak, The way you feel, you become more careful with what you pick up, not fearful, but precise, and this precision becomes your freedom. A person who walks with clarity is not less involved in life. They are more deeply rooted in it. They do not reject the world, but they do not lose themselves in it either. So when something enters your life, an idea, an opportunity, an identity, ask yourself, is this something I want to hold lightly, or will I let it possess me without question, and then stay close to the answer that arises in stillness? True ownership demands responsibility and transformation. This is not just a statement about material possessions. It is a reflection on the weight of holding anything that matters. To own something in truth, whether it is an idea, a role, a gift, or a title, is not passive. It is active. It does not simply grant you status or comfort. It invites you into change, into growth, into a deeper relationship with the self and with the world around you. We often use the word own lightly. We say we own a house, a car, a business, a decision. But how often do we really understand what it means to take full ownership, not just of the benefits that come with it, but of the demands it places on your time, your mind, your behavior, your being? Because the moment you own something, truly own it, you become its guardian, and that role is never without cost. To own something means you can no longer blame, you cannot point fingers, you cannot escape into excuses. You cannot hide behind convenience. Ownership brings you to the center. It says, you are responsible now. You are accountable now. That is a powerful shift. It requires maturity. It requires honesty. And more than anything, it requires the willingness to evolve. Consider the idea of owning your choices. Most people are willing to take credit for the good outcomes, the victories, the applause. But true ownership also means standing still in front of your mistakes. It means facing the consequences of your actions without running, without defending, without distorting the story to protect your ego. This is the responsibility part of ownership, and it is the part that most people quietly avoid. But without that responsibility, transformation is not possible, because if you cannot face what is, truly face it, then how can you grow from it? How can you refine yourself? How can you deepen your awareness and your skill? Transformation does not come just from experience. It comes from owned experience. Two people can live through the same event. One walks away unchanged because they saw it as something that happened to them. The other is transformed because they saw it as something that happened through them, and because of them. That difference is everything. When you own something, it shapes you. It invites you to live differently. A person who owns a role, say the role of a leader, cannot afford to act without integrity. They cannot speak carelessly. They cannot indulge their impulses the same way they did before, because now others look to them. Now their words and actions have weight. If they take this lightly, they do not own the role. They are only renting it, and rented power is fragile. It collapses under pressure, but when ownership is real, the pressure transforms it. It tempers the person, it deepens them. Responsibility is not about control, it is about response, the ability to respond. When you own something, you become more responsive, more attentive. You watch for the subtle signs. You act when action is needed. You do not wait to be told. You do not outsource your conscience. This level of responsibility is not a burden, it is a refinement. It is the sharpening of your own awareness. Look at someone who owns their craft, a true artist, a dedicated practitioner, a skilled teacher. These people do not wait for inspiration. They show up daily. They refine their process. They seek feedback. They take correction not as criticism, but as an opportunity to sharpen their understanding. This is ownership. It is not glamorous. Often it is invisible, but it is real, and it is transformative. Now think about someone who owns their healing. Many people go through pain, loss, trauma, but ownership is what makes the difference between someone who stays in the story and someone who learns from it. Ownership of healing does not mean denying the hurt. It means not letting the hurt define your future. It means recognizing your role in your own liberation. It means asking, what can I do, even with what I've been given? This is a powerful question. It moves you out of the role of the victim and into the role of the author. And the moment you ask it sincerely, transformation begins. Owning your values is another form of deep responsibility. It is one thing to say you believe in something. It is another thing to live it, especially when it is inconvenient. To own your values means you must sometimes walk away from easy paths. You must disappoint others. You must stand alone when no one claps for your integrity. But this is how values become part of who you are, not just part of your image. And when your values shape your actions consistently, transformation takes root in your character. Even something as subtle as time must be owned. You have 24 hours, no more, no less. How you spend them is a reflection of what you truly value, not what you say you value. Ownership of time means you stop blaming distractions. You stop saying, I didn't have time. You start saying, I chose differently. This honesty can be uncomfortable, but it is also freeing, because now you see that the power is in your hands. And once you see that, you cannot go back. You can only go forward, more consciously, more intentionally. Ownership is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It is quiet, steady, grounded. You can feel it in the presence of someone who takes responsibility for their energy, their words, their environment. They do not complain unnecessarily. They do not gossip. They do not wait for someone else to fix what they can reach. Their actions are clean. Their attention is sharp. They do what needs to be done, not because someone is watching, but because they are watching. They live in alignment with themselves. This is the deepest level of ownership, the inner one. The ownership of self, not just your public self, but your inner world, your thoughts, your reactions, your motivations. To take responsibility for the self is to live in awareness of your conditioning. It is to question your patterns, to ask, where did this belief come from? Is this truly mine, or did I inherit it without reflection? This kind of inner work is not easy. It exposes your blind spots. It humbles you, but it also liberates you, because only what you own can be transformed. You cannot change what you avoid. You cannot heal what you deny. You cannot grow from what you disown. Ownership is the beginning of all transformation, because it brings light to what is hidden. It makes the unconscious conscious, and once you see clearly, change becomes not just possible, it becomes inevitable. To truly own something, you must care for it, nurture it, listen to it. Whether it is a relationship, a goal, a skill, or a belief, you cannot simply hold it and expect it to thrive. You must engage with it, tend to it, revise it when needed, let it evolve. This is the living nature of responsibility. It is not a one-time decision. It is an ongoing practice. Ownership also means surrender, not surrender in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of giving into the process, letting yourself be changed by what you carry. Because if you carry something real, something meaningful, it will ask you to change. It will stretch your patience, challenge your assumptions, push your limits, and in doing so, it will show you who you really are and who you could become. There is no true ownership without humility, because when you really own something, you understand how little control you have over the outcomes. You can shape your actions, your choices, your attention, but not always the results. Ownership does not mean forcing outcomes. It means standing present in the process with full engagement and full acceptance. That balance between effort and surrender is where transformation lives. Responsibility is not about perfection. You will still make mistakes. You will still fall short. But when you own those moments, when you take responsibility for them without collapsing into shame or hiding behind pride, you grow. You mature. You become someone who can be trusted, not just by others, but by yourself. Trust is built through ownership. You begin to trust yourself when you keep your word, when you follow through, when you show up even when it's hard, when you don't outsource your growth to circumstances. This self-trust is the foundation for all other transformation, because without it, you will hesitate, you will look for answers outside of yourself. You will wait for permission, but when you own your path, your choices, your process, you move with clarity. Even when the road is uncertain, you trust your steps. Ownership is a daily practice. It is not glamorous. It is not always visible, but it is powerful. It creates depth, integrity, presence, and slowly, quietly, it transforms you not just into someone who holds power, but someone who embodies it. Possession without readiness becomes a burden. This is a truth that reveals itself not in the moment of gaining, but in the quiet aftermath, when the weight of what you now hold begins to settle in your hands, on your shoulders, in your thoughts. It is a pattern that repeats across lives and generations. People chase, people gain, and only later do they feel the hidden cost of holding what they were not yet prepared to carry. The object, the title, the relationship, the responsibility, even the knowledge. Without readiness, all of it becomes too much. Not because it is inherently too heavy, but because you are not yet built to hold it. We live in a time that praises acquisition. The more you can collect, the more you appear successful. But what is rarely discussed is the quiet suffering that grows in the gap between possession and preparedness. When something enters your life too soon, before your inner foundation is formed, it creates imbalance, it introduces pressure, and often it breaks what it was meant to build. Imagine someone handed a sharp sword before they learned discipline. That sword will not protect them, it will endanger them, it may harm others, it may eventually harm them, not because the sword is evil, but because the person is not yet ready to hold it. Their hands are clumsy. Their attention is scattered, their heart is reactive. Power without preparation does not elevate, it distorts. This is why timing is not just a detail in life, it is everything. When something arrives before you have cultivated the depth to receive it, it overwhelms you. It becomes noise, confusion, a pressure that you cannot explain and that others cannot understand. You may look successful on the outside. You may appear as someone who has arrived, but inside, you are drowning in something you once prayed for. The thing you thought would fulfill you now drains you. The dream becomes the demand. This pattern appears everywhere. A young athlete becomes famous overnight, but they haven't developed the maturity to handle the attention. They spiral. A person receives sudden wealth, but their relationship with money is rooted in fear or emptiness. They mismanage it. A person enters a relationship they deeply wanted, but they never developed emotional awareness. They sabotage it. They don't know how to hold what they asked for because they skipped the preparation. Readiness is not built in the spotlight. It is formed in silence, in repetition, in discipline. It is the unseen work, the quiet cultivation of the self, the building of internal structures that can carry the weight of what you seek. Without that inner work, anything external will feel heavy, even love. Even peace. People often ask for clarity, not realizing that clarity itself can be a burden. When you see clearly, you must act differently. You can no longer lie to yourself. You can no longer stay in situations that are comfortable but false. Clarity demands courage. It requires you to step out of the familiar. If you are not ready, that clarity will torment you instead of freeing you. So even something as beautiful as truth becomes a burden in the hands of someone unprepared to live it. Think of a position of leadership. It might look like influence, authority, and recognition, but leadership is service. It is responsibility. It is the pressure of knowing that your actions ripple out into the lives of others. A person may chase this role because they want to feel powerful, but if they do not possess emotional intelligence, patience, and humility, they will crumble, or worse, they will cause harm without even realizing it. Not because they are evil, but because they were given something they did not yet have the inner structure to carry. Now look at the realm of knowledge. Information is everywhere. You can learn anything at any time. But wisdom is different. Wisdom is not what you know. It is how you hold what you know. It is how you apply it, how you integrate it into your actions and your way of being. A mind full of facts without the presence to understand them becomes noisy, chaotic, confused. It speaks much but sees little. Knowledge without readiness creates arrogance. You think you know, you think you're above others, but you are only repeating what you've absorbed, not what you've digested. Real learning requires readiness, a humility to remain open, to not rush toward mastery, to allow wisdom to grow slowly, organically, through experience. Relationships also reveal this truth. You may deeply desire to love and be loved. But if you haven't faced your wounds, if you haven't built self-awareness, if you haven't practiced communication, patience, and listening, then love will feel like pressure. You will misinterpret closeness as threat. You will sabotage intimacy. The relationship becomes heavy, not because love is heavy, but because your heart was not ready to be open without fear. People believe love will fix them, but love only amplifies what is already inside. If you bring chaos, that chaos expands. If you bring peace, that peace deepens. The possession of love without the readiness to hold it becomes exhausting. The same is true of creative gifts. To be talented is not enough. Talent must be anchored by discipline. A person may have a beautiful voice, but if they are not ready to practice, to refine, to remain humble, that talent will not bloom. It will become a source of frustration. They will feel they were meant for more but are stuck. They will compare, they will blame, but the truth is, the gap is not in the gift, it is in the preparation. This applies to spiritual practice as well. People seek awakening, realization, enlightenment, but if these states arrive before the ego is matured, before the emotional system is stabilized, before the body is grounded, it can create psychological imbalance. The person becomes unmoored, dissociated. They cannot function in the world. They mistake spiritual insight for superiority. They bypass their humanity. They become disconnected from the very life they were meant to live fully. Even spiritual power without readiness becomes a burden. What then is readiness? It is not perfection. It is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of responsibility. It is the willingness to be shaped. It is the humility to learn, to be corrected, to be patient. Readiness is built through showing up again and again, even when there is no reward. It is the trust in slow growth. It is the acceptance that your timing is not always the universe's timing. And it is the understanding that holding something well is more important than holding it quickly. You cannot rush maturity. You cannot fast forward depth. And if you do, you will pay the price not in public failure, but in quiet fatigue. In the exhaustion of carrying something you do not yet understand, the burden is not just in the weight itself, it is in the confusion, the mental spinning, the emotional overwhelm, the loss of center, and the grief of not being able to fully enjoy what you once longed for. To possess something before you're ready is like being handed a map without knowing how to read it. You move, but without direction. You make choices, but without clarity, and eventually you find yourself lost, not because the path was wrong, but because the readiness to walk it with awareness was missing. This is why the preparation matters more than the arrival. The waiting, the struggle, the discipline, the doubt, these are not detours. They are the training. They are what shape your vessel so that when life pours into it, it does not crack. Without that foundation, any gain becomes unstable. The higher the structure, the deeper the roots must be. And so we are invited, again and again, to grow slowly, to accept the pace of life, to trust the process of becoming, and to resist the pressure to possess before we are grounded in our capacity to carry. Because what you are not ready to hold will not uplift you, it will weigh you down, it will distort your perception, it will tire your spirit, and it may even lead you to believe that the gift was a curse. But the gift was never the problem was in the absence of readiness, and readiness is always available, but never instant. It is cultivated in the small choices, in the silent hours, in the commitment to live with depth, not appearance. In the quiet strength that says, not yet is not no, not yet is preparation. When we learn to honor readiness, we also learn to honor life. We stop demanding, we start listening, we stop rushing, we start building. And we begin to realize that nothing is denied, it is only delayed until we become someone who can carry it well. Real things test your foundation daily, not once, not occasionally, but every single day. This is the nature of what is real. It does not politely ask if you are prepared. It arrives with weight, with movement, with presence, and that presence interacts directly with the structure beneath your surface. The visible part of your life may speak one story, but your foundation, your real root, will be the one speaking back when life pushes against you. The deeper the reality of what you hold, the more it will search out the cracks in what you stand on. A strong foundation is not built by thinking, it is built by being tested. Real things, whether it's love, truth, responsibility, leadership, loss, or calling, do not just sit in your life quietly, they press. They provoke, they stretch, and in doing so, they expose. The test is not always loud. It might be a small moment of discomfort, a subtle conflict, a decision that no one else sees, but that is enough. Because real things know exactly where to press. They are not fooled by your image. They move past your language and reach into the part of you that is still uncertain, still unresolved, still borrowed from others. Every day, you are in relationship with something real. It might be your work. It might be your integrity. It might be your silence. And each of these things will look you in the eye and ask, are you honest? Are you consistent? Are you grounded? Are you clear? And if your foundation is not stable, you will flinch, you will avoid, you will start performing instead of living. That's the first sign that something has touched a part of you that is not fully built. You do not know what kind of person you are when things are easy. Ease hides your weaknesses, comfort conceals your chaos, but the real enters without asking. It comes in the form of pressure, complexity, or demand. It forces you to respond. It doesn't wait for your self-image to catch up. It simply is, and your body, your nervous system, your decisions, all respond in real time. These moments are not punishments. They are mirrors, and those mirrors reflect your readiness. The relationship you thought was solid starts to deepen, and now the parts of you that are afraid of closeness show up. The role you've always wanted begins to require action, and now you feel the fear of being exposed. The path you said you believed in becomes narrow, and now your trust is no longer theoretical. This is the nature of the real. It arrives not to entertain, but to reveal. And what does it reveal? Your relationship with yourself. Your values, your discipline, your emotional flexibility, your internal dialogue. These things are not visible when life is coasting. They emerge when tension enters, when the weight of what you carry becomes real. Real things don't adapt to your comfort zone. They pull you into theirs. You can resist this. You can try to bend the real into something smaller, something less demanding, but in doing so, you break your own potential. You shrink the very opportunity that was sent to grow you. Foundation is not built overnight, and the testing never ends, because every time you grow, life hands you a new layer of reality, and each layer tests a new part of you. You may feel stable in one area, only to discover you are fragile in another. This is not failure. This is development. It's not about reaching a place where nothing shakes you. It's about becoming someone who no longer avoids the shaking. Your foundation is built in how you respond when things don't go your way. When the outcome you wanted slips away. When someone misunderstands you. When the pressure increases. When you're tired but still have to choose. These moments are not interruptions. They are the curriculum. Real things are alive. They evolve. They demand that you evolve with them. If you stay still, your foundation becomes outdated. What held you yesterday may not be enough for today. So if you don't upgrade your thinking, your habits, your emotional depth, you will start to feel unsteady, not because life is unfair, but because life is honest. You can only hold as much as your structure can support. And the only way to test that structure is to place weight on it. So when something heavy enters your life, pay attention. Don't rush to blame. Don't flee to distraction. Listen. What is it showing you about what you've built? What is solid? What is still hollow? Where are you pretending? Pretending is the great enemy of foundation. You can pretend in public, in language, even in thought. But when something real touches your life, pretense dissolves. The mask falls, and what's underneath speaks. Some people collapse under the real, not because they are weak, but because they built on borrowed ground, on ideas they didn't test, on beliefs they never challenged, on values they inherited but never embodied. And when something real comes to visit, the borrowed parts start to crack. That is not the end. That is the invitation to rebuild. Rebuilding is difficult. It requires humility. You must admit that what looked good was not deep enough, that what worked once no longer serves, that the person you were is not sufficient for the life you are entering. This is not shameful. This is honest evolution. There is no shame in being shaken. The shame is in refusing to look, in pretending that what is real should adjust itself to your comfort. It won't. It never will. And that's the beauty of the real. It forces you to mature. Not by accident, not by image, but by contact. You must meet it, and in meeting it you meet yourself. Many people fear being tested, but the test is not a punishment, it's a mirror. And if you never see your reflection clearly, you cannot grow deliberately. So instead of fearing the test, start to welcome it. Begin to see discomfort as feedback, not as a sign of failure, but as a signal. Something deeper is being asked of you. Every real relationship you have will test your ability to stay open when you're triggered. Every real dream you chase will test your consistency when motivation fades. Every real truth you hold will test your courage when it's unpopular. This is not a flaw of reality, it is its gift. Growth does not happen in theory, it happens in these real interactions. You say you're patient until waiting tests your nerves. You say you're honest until the truth costs you something. You say you're strong until life pulls the rug from beneath you. These moments are not betrayals, they are checkpoints. They are asking, do you really want this, or do you only want it when it's easy? Real things also test your alignment. You can no longer live in contradiction without feeling it in your body. When you say yes and mean no, when you act for approval but feel empty, when you pursue goals that don't match your soul. These inner contradictions create subtle tension, and that tension builds until something breaks, not because life is cruel, but because you're out of sync, and real things will always push you back toward truth, even if it hurts. The strength of a structure is not in how tall it stands, but in how deeply it's rooted. Surface success can collapse in a moment if the foundation is shallow. Real things are not impressed by appearance. They press down until they find the bedrock. And if the bedrock isn't there, you will feel it. In fatigue, in disconnection, in the sense that something is off, even when everything looks right. That sense is a gift. It's the whisper that tells you, go deeper, build again, build better, not for show, not for applause, but because what is coming next will require more of you, and you deserve to meet it whole. Foundation is not made once. It is maintained, tested, reinforced again and again. Life will keep circling back to your weakest points, not to torment you, but to fortify you. You may wish the test would end, but the truth is, as long as you are growing, the tests will continue. Because real things don't stop evolving, and neither should you. So learn to live with the test. Learn to listen to it. It's the most honest teacher you will ever have. It will not flatter you. It will not lie to you. But it will make you stronger if you let it. It will not let you settle for shallow. It will not let you fake your way through. It will not let you forget what matters, because real things never leave you where they found you. They take you deeper, and in that depth you find your true foundation, not what you hoped you were, but what you actually are, and what you are willing to become.